1968 wasn't just another year on the calendar. It was a powder keg of change. Across the world, people marched, protested, loved, and rebelled. The world was spinning fast, and rock music? It was the soundtrack to it all. Whether it was spinning from a dusty record player, blaring from a car radio on a summer night, or echoing through the walls of a smoky club, the songs of '68 hit deeper. They weren't just catchy, they meant something. They carried the weight of revolution, heartbreak, defiance, and hope. So today, we're cranking up the volume and dialing back the years. These are the 13 rock songs from 1968 that didn't just top charts. They shaped the sound, soul, and spirit of a generation. So sit back, relax, and let's take a musical journey through a year where rock didn't just play, it roared.
Don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get high. The minute
With that tender piano line and Paul McCartney's soothing voice, Hey Jude instantly became more than a song. It became a source of comfort for millions. Released in August 1968, this emotional anthem was originally written for Julian Lennon, John's son, during his parents' messy separation. What started as Hey Jules evolved into a track that touched on healing, resilience, and letting go. And despite clocking in at over 7 minutes, a daring move for radio, it soared. It spent 9 weeks at #1 in the US, a Beatles record at the time. This was the band's first single released on their own Apple Records label, and the production made full use of the new 8-track recording system. The arrangement starts simple, but grows into an unforgettable crescendo, McCartney's lead vocal giving way to a chorus of voices singing that now legendary Na 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 outro. For anyone navigating heartbreak, uncertainty, or change in '68, Hey Jude was a warm hand on the shoulder, a reminder that even in chaos, there's beauty in beginning again. And while the Beatles were guiding us toward hope, another band was turning heads with a swaggering love song built for the airwaves. Hello, I Love You, by The Doors, was pure psychedelic pop, short, punchy, and impossible to ignore. Released in July 1968, this 2.5-minute blast took the band's usual dark mystique and gave it a radio-friendly makeover. Inspired by Jim Morrison's encounter with a girl on the Venice Beach boardwalk, the song drips with flirtation and groove. Its fuzzed-out guitar riff and insistent beat made it one of the most accessible and commercial songs The Doors ever released. It shot to #1 in the US, showing the band could play with mainstream success without losing their edge. But don't be fooled by the playful tone. Beneath the surface, Morrison still plays the poet, sneaking in lines that question beauty, power, and longing. The Doors, formed just a few years earlier in LA, were already known for bending genres and minds, and Hello, I Love You proved they could do both while still owning the charts. For fans, it felt like summer in sonic form, a beachside dream with a hint of danger, just like Morrison himself. And speaking of danger and emotion, 1968 gave us one of the rawest vocal performances ever captured on tape. No one sang heartbreak like Janis Joplin, and in 1968, the world took notice. With Piece of My Heart, Janis and her band, Big Brother and the Holding Company, turned a soulful 1967 tune, originally recorded by Irma Franklin, Aretha's sister, into a psychedelic blues explosion. Released on their breakthrough album Cheap Thrills, the song became Joplin's signature, an unapologetic cry of pain and passion that echoed the voice of countless women breaking free from societal expectations. Her voice was raspy, raw, and completely unfiltered. Every line sounded like it had been lived. She didn't just sing about giving too much. She screamed it, as if tearing her own soul open in real time. The San Francisco band's acid rock sound was already unique, but Janis elevated it to something spiritual, something visceral. The song became a counterculture anthem, especially for women trying to carve out independence during a time of protest, progress, and personal liberation. It was a performance that felt like a revolution in itself. And just as the dust was settling, another storm was brewing, this time in the form of a six-string legend rewriting a Bob Dylan classic. If Bob Dylan built the house, Jimi Hendrix burned it down and rebuilt it in Technicolor. Released in September 1968, All Along the Watchtower was Hendrix's reinterpretation of Dylan's 1967 song. But it wasn't just a cover, it was a transformation. With his searing guitar work, swirling layers of feedback, and a haunting sense of urgency, Hendrix turned the cryptic folk song into a psychedelic rock epic. Backed by Noel Redding on bass and Mitch Mitchell on drums, the Jimi Hendrix Experience recorded the track at Olympic Studios in London, adding layer upon layer of sonic firepower. Hendrix famously recorded multiple takes for nearly every guitar line. Perfection was the goal, and he got it. Dylan himself was so blown away by Hendrix's version that he started performing it Hendrix style in his own live shows. This wasn't just a moment in music, it was a lightning bolt in time. From Vietnam protests to smoky dorm rooms, the song crackled with unrest and rebellion. The solo alone? It could raise the hair on your arms, even today. And just when you thought things couldn't get more intense, the Rolling Stones came stomping back with one of the most electric riffs of their career. Raw, rebellious, and electrified from the first riff, Jumpin' Jack Flash marked a gritty rebirth for the Rolling Stones. Released as a standalone single in May 1968, the track came after a short psychedelic detour with Their Satanic Majesty's Request. But with this song, the Stones returned to their blues roots. Louder, sharper, and dirtier than ever. Keith Richards's iconic riff, reportedly composed while messing around in open tuning on an acoustic guitar, remains one of the most recognizable in rock history. Mick Jagger snarls his way through the verses with swagger and defiance. It was the perfect soundtrack for a world on edge, full of energy, unrest, and youth bursting to break free. The Stones weren't trying to fit into the cultural moment. They were the moment. The song climbed into the top 5 on the US charts and became a staple of the band's live sets for decades. From bar jukeboxes to packed stadiums, Jumpin' Jack Flash has never lost its punch. And while the Stones were bringing back the blues with fire, another band across the Atlantic was making a wild, organ-fueled splash of their own. Before they became the gods of hard rock, Deep Purple kicked in the door with Hush, a groovy, high-octane rocker that introduced them to the world. Released in 1968, the song was actually a cover, originally written by Joe South and recorded by Billy Joe Royal, but Deep Purple took it somewhere else entirely. Their version, driven by John Lord's swirling Hammond organ and Ritchie Blackmore's sharp-edged guitar, turned into a powerful blend of psychedelic soul and British rock muscle. With Rod Evans on vocals, Hush raced up the US charts, hitting number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was one of the few early hits from a British band that got big in America before making waves in the UK. This was the birth of something bigger. The seeds of the heavy metal and prog rock revolutions were being planted here, disguised inside a funky, danceable hit. Listening to it now, you can hear the band just beginning to stretch its wings. right before they'd go on to make history with Smoke on the Water a few years later. From heavy grooves to heartfelt pleas, our next song brought a message of peace during one of America's most painful moments.
All the world over so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. Listen, please listen, that's the way it should be. Peace in the valley.
In a year scarred by war, riots, and assassinations, the Rascals gave us a shining ray of hope with People Got to Be Free. Released just weeks after the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, the song captured the national mood, a mixture of grief, exhaustion, and a desperate longing for unity. The Rascals, known previously as the Young Rascals, blended soul, rock, and pop with gospel-tinged harmonies that gave the track a heartfelt punch. It opens with a train whistle, then barrels forward with joyful urgency. Felix Cavaliere's vocals are both urgent and warm, reminding everyone that freedom wasn't just an idea. It was a right. The track shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 5 weeks. This wasn't just a protest song. It was a plea, one that resonated in city streets, college campuses, and suburban living rooms alike. Even now, the message still feels just as vital. And as the country wrestled with heavy questions, one trio from the UK used lush harmonies to tell a quieter, more personal story. Long before the disco ball, the Bee Gees made their mark with sweeping ballads like I've Gotta Get a Message to You, a haunting tale of love, regret, and final words. Released in 1968, the song tells the fictional story of a man on death row trying to send one last message to the woman he loves. Robin Gibb delivers a trembling, emotional vocal that gives the narrative its aching heart. Supported by the Bee Gees' trademark layered harmonies, the orchestral backing and drama-filled storytelling stood out during a year dominated by psychedelia and revolution. Instead of rage or protest, this song offered vulnerability, a reminder that love, loss, and consequence are timeless themes, no matter the era. The track reached #1 in the UK and broke into the US top 10, becoming one of the Bee Gees' first major international hits. It showcased their ability to mix emotion and melody into something deeply moving, even cinematic. But while the Bee Gees tugged at our heartstrings, another band was ready to slam the pedal to the metal and blast into immortality. If there's a single track that screams freedom, Born to Be Wild is it. Released in 1968 by Steppenwolf, this gritty anthem captured the restless spirit of a generation yearning to break away from rules, routines, and everything expected. With its roaring guitar riff, pounding drums, and growling vocals from John Kay, the song didn't just soundtrack biker culture. It helped create it. Famously featured in the 1969 film Easy Rider, the track exploded in popularity, becoming a defining anthem of the counterculture movement. And let's not forget, it's often cited as the first ever song to use the term heavy metal, even before the genre fully formed. But this wasn't about labels. It was about adrenaline, power, the open road. Born to Be Wild is the sound of wind in your hair and the world at your feet. It still hits hard decades later. Fast, loud, and totally untamed. Now that we've cranked the throttle wide open, let's pull over and take a moment with a song that blends pop, heartbreak, and the Memphis soul sound.
When I think about the good love you gave me, I cry like a baby. Living without you is driving me crazy. I cry like
With its lush strings and soulful groove, Cry Like a Baby by the Box Tops is one of those 1968 gems that still feels like it's playing from the backseat of a classic car. Following the breakout success of The Letter, the Memphis-based group struck gold again with this track, written by the legendary team of Dan Penn and Spooner Oldham. But it was 17-year-old Alex Chilton's gritty, mature beyond his years voice that gave the song its emotional firepower. The production is rich with Southern soul, complete with electric sitar, sweeping orchestration, and a groove that straddles pop and R&B. It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, holding its own against the psychedelic giants of the year. More than just a breakup song, Cry Like a Baby struck a chord with listeners who knew what it meant to lose something real. It's a heartbreak anthem dressed up in soul pop satin, and it still holds up beautifully. And speaking of songs that stand the test of time, few riffs have echoed louder through the decades than this next one. Few guitar riffs are as instantly recognizable as the opening to Sunshine of Your Love, when Cream released it as a single in the UK in September 1968. It cemented their status as one of rock's most innovative and influential bands. Written by Jack Bruce, Eric Clapton, and lyricist Pete Brown, the song was a swirling blend of blues, psychedelia, and hard rock, years ahead of its time. Clapton's riff was reportedly inspired by a Jimi Hendrix show he'd seen the night before. That influence turned into pure gold. The rhythm section, with Ginger Baker's unique jazz-infused drumming, gave the song a hypnotic, almost tribal pulse. Combined with Bruce's soulful vocals and Clapton's searing solo, the result was lightning in a bottle. Though released the year before on their album Disraeli Gears, the single's UK release in '68 gave the track a second wind, making it a mainstay on both sides of the Atlantic and one of the most covered songs in rock history. And while Cream was setting fire to the blues, a folk duo was quietly crafting a cultural anthem that would first played in The Graduate. It wasn't just background music, it was a generational moment. Released as a full single in 1968 by Simon and Garfunkel, the song became an instant symbol of quiet rebellion, confusion, and shifting values. With Paul Simon's iconic acoustic riff and Art Garfunkel's delicate harmonies, the track walks a fine line between playful and piercing. It speaks in riddles and illusions, yet somehow hits a universal nerve. Mrs. Robinson reached number 1 on the Billboard charts and won 2 Grammy Awards, including Record of the Year. But beyond the accolades, it became a cultural touchstone, an anthem for a generation grappling with disillusionment, yearning for something more, and questioning everything that came before. To this day, that chorus still lands like a knowing wink from the past. And yes, everyone still wonders what the deal is with Joe DiMaggio. Next up, we close with one final track, haunting, powerful, and one of the biggest hits of the entire year. I Heard It Through the Grapevine wasn't just a Motown hit, it was a soul earthquake. Recorded in 1967, but released in October 1968, this Marvin Gaye version became the definitive take. With its slow-burning rhythm, ghostly strings, and Marvin's anguished vocal, it turned a simple rumor into a full-blown emotional storm. It stayed at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 weeks, and became the biggest hit of Marvin's career up to that point. Behind the scenes, the song had already been recorded by both Gladys Knight and the Pips and Smokey Robinson, but Berry Gordy was hesitant to release Marvin's version. Good thing he changed his mind, because what came out wasn't just a hit, it was a masterpiece. Marvin Gaye's restrained, aching delivery gave every line an eerie intimacy, as if he was whispering his heartbreak into your ear. And while it may not scream rock in the traditional sense, its influence on genre fusion and mood-based storytelling paved the way for future generations. And with that final note, our journey through the sounds of 1968 draws to a close. And there you have it. 13 rock songs from 1968 that didn't just make waves. They made history, each one a spark in the fire of change. Some gave us goosebumps, others made us cry, and a few lit the fuse for what rock would become in the decades to follow. These weren't just tracks. They were time capsules. They carried memories, movements, and the very soul of a generation. So now it's your turn. Which of these songs takes you back to that unforgettable year? Or did we miss your personal favorite from '68? Drop it in the comments and let's keep the conversation going. If this video hit the right chords, give it a thumbs up. Share it with a fellow rock lover, and don't forget to subscribe for more trips down memory lane. Until next time, keep the vinyl spinning, keep the spirit of '68 alive, and never stop believing in the power of rock and roll.